This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I am, in fact, Steve Gould, old ginger face, coming at you. Thank you for being here, guys. Thank you for rating and reviewing. I always love that. Whatever app you use, I appreciate a 5-star review if you really love the show. And guys, we need guests. We must feed the beast. We must keep the queue loaded up with police, active or retired, or any kind of law enforcement profession. I would love to have you. So tell a friend, ask a friend. If you've thought about doing it, you've been cruising around patrolling, and you think, oh, I have some good stories, but you're kind of you're on the fence, then I would say just pull the trigger. Come on. You're going to have a good time. It's fun, and we can use pseudonyms, and we can not mention your agency, and we've even blurred out people's faces before. So, but I don't want you to break any policy or anything like that, but some guys just want to be extra careful, or they're involved in gang work and stuff like that. They don't really want their persona out there. So I totally get that. So we can do it. Let's do it. Come on, please. I need you. Thank you so much for all the Patreon people. We've got more people signing up and supporting the show that way, which is awesome. I really appreciate it. You know, I work a lot of, usually anywhere between 60 and 75 hours a week, and I do the show, which I love doing, but I don't have a lot of time to promote the show or try to get sponsors, or even get into an in-depth thing with people who might want to sponsor the show, although I should pay more attention to that, but I just don't have a lot of extra time. So if you guys could tell a friend, if you like the show, just spread the word of mouth. Let's do it that way. That will be much easier for me. Go like the social media. It's we're on Instagram and Facebook, and we're on YouTube too. Like most of all the recent interviews are also on YouTube, which I guess I never mention, or I don't mention enough, because people literally just like 2 days ago, somebody was like, you should put your podcast on YouTube. And I'm like, it's on there, my man. And they're like, oh, really? I had no idea. So yeah, it's there. I know that Google Podcasts is going away. If it hasn't already, it's going away the next couple months. That's going to be gone. So I don't get I really get a very small percentage of people listening on there. I think it's like 500 people a month listen on Google Podcasts, which isn't a lot. But if that's your app and you're faithful to it and you love it, just know that I got a notice that, and my good friend Tom also gave me a heads up through an email that that's going away. So they're going to use YouTube itself is now podcasts, like it does podcasts. It's kind of clunky the way to do it, but once you find the YouTube podcast thing, it's awesome. It's just like Spotify. You can either watch the video or you can shut the video off and just listen to the audio. All these podcasts are on YouTube's podcast, I don't even know, platform, I guess they call it. So it's already there. So if you have Google Podcasts and it's going away, just know you can do that. Or we're also on everything else. We're on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, anything you can think of, Pocket Casts, and all those different apps. We're there, and you can listen on a different one. So with all that out of the way, guys, let me do the intro for our guest today. Excited to have him. Friend of a friend suggested him, which is great. The great William James Long, supporter of the show, and friend of mine for the last 3 or 4 years now. I met him through the podcast. Great guy. He actually ended up becoming a deputy and is on patrol now. He worked with this gentleman and said, you got to have him on. He's got, he's a military veteran, and he's got a ton of experience, and he'd just be a great guest. So he agreed to go on. He's got 18 years as a deputy in the state of Oklahoma, in a major populated area. He's an FTO. He's a member of the SWAT team. Also, Army and National Guard, was deployed after 9/11. So without further ado, let me bring on the great James Morris. James.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Hey, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. I know it was we had some cross signals there, but we finally got you, so it's good.
Time zones are tricky. What can we say?
Yeah, right. So, yeah, and I'm always I have like I said about the working a lot. I know you know about that as a cop, but then got 3 little ones too, and my wife stays at home with them, but sometimes she takes them out, and it's like if they're gonna If she's not back with the older one and I got the two little ones here, the podcast is not. It's not going to be appropriate if you're talking about something and then you hear like a child laughing in the background. If you know what I mean.
Well, I've got a grandbaby in the house right now, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
You got
Luckily,
a
she's napping right now, so we're safe.
You have a grandbaby? That's amazing.
Yes, I'm old. What can I say?
Wow,
I'm
you're not.
47, so.
Man, that's great. Good for you. Congratulations, man. That's a blessing right there.
Yeah, but I forgot about what having babies is like. So yeah, so it's a little bit of a reminder, like, oh yeah, but now I can say, okay, here's your kid. That's nice.
Yeah, my daughter's our daughter oldest is my daughter. She's 14, and I was just the other day I was teasing her. I was like, yeah, I can't wait to you get married and have a big family, and she's like, ugh. Like I guess that was too early, 14.
Well, my youngest is 13, and I told her she can start dating as soon as she turns 35. I will let her start dating.
That's right. Well, we have some stipulations. Has to be a good Christian man, and things like that.
Well, as long as he's that and a millionaire too, then it's fine.
Then we could do 30, probably. Drop it a little.
Well, no, 35 definitely.
That's great, man. So you actually got on you got on the police force and like immediately went overseas with the military. Is that right?
Yeah, I joined the sheriff's office, and then the day after I finished our academy, we graduated on Thursday. I went to work on a Friday, and then that night I actually had drill. I was in the National Guard at the time, and right before drill started, my phone rang, and it was the Army, and they said, "Hey, we're actually going to send you to Afghanistan. A report down to this small town where you're going to ship from on Monday." So on Monday, I called work. I'm like, "Hey, I'm not going to be back for like 15 months. I'll send you some orders when I get them." And so I went away and did a deployment and got shot when I was over there. I got blown up and got my ear blown off and reattached. And
Wow.
then I came back after a year. And then 3 months later, I went on another deployment, this time to Iraq, and got blown up again. And this time I kept all my body parts on. So, and then I came back and did a few months and went to patrol. And I've been there ever since.
Damn, man, that must have been such a bummer because I know what it is. What it's like to be a young cop just out of academy. Like you want nothing more than to be sitting in that patrol car. And
well, everyone, when I was deployed, all the soldiers I served with, they're like, "Oh yeah, you're a cop." I'm like, "Well, sort of." I mean, I have a badge, but yeah, I had no cop stories. I had no cop experience at all. I was just a guy who went to the academy and worked like half a day on Friday before I went to drill, and that was that. So it was very odd, that first deployment.
How was it coming back when usually you hit the road with academy fresh in your mind. Now you, not only did you not hit the road, you went into an incredibly stressful situation, probably incurred some trauma, and then came back and had to start as a newbie. How difficult was that?
It was actually a great benefit to me because the experiences overseas prepared me a lot for the experiences I would endure on patrol. So things that would happen that might stress out another guy who hadn't been involved in that, to me, it was not a big deal at all. And that really came into effect on some of the things that occurred to me early on in my patrol experience when things were sort of exciting. So I was very fortunate that I went through that. Some things I needed some help on because I just simply hadn't been involved in the police level work that way. Like when everyone came back, they went through a mini academy at the office where they learned a lot more in-depth police skills. I never got to be a part of that. So I came back and just kind of had to learn as I went. But luckily I had some really good FTOs and they got me ready for the job.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. I know that they can't. Is there a limit to how long you can be taken away from your job? Your job has to hold your position indefinitely if you're going deployed, right?
Well, sort of, yes. I mean, they absolutely do have to hold it, but they can give you another position as long as it's the same. You have everything you had when you left. So, for example, if I was on patrol and I was shipped away for a year, when I came back, they would have to give me another car because I would have a car ready, and you just have to have the same level of what you had when you left. But they might actually have to move you around. You might get a different shift, but luckily, my job is very, very flexible with that and very supportive. They've always been great, any deployment. And I did 3 while I've been at the office, and they've been very great every time.
Okay, that's great. So how did the great William James Long from William James Long Investigations, how did he do an FTO? Was he a slow learner, quick learner? How was he?
He was good. He was good. You have the ones that stick out as really super great, and then you will have the guys that stick out as oh my gosh, this guy's going to kill me every night I go to work.
That was
And
William.
he definitely was not going to kill me. He learned and
Good.
he did great. So
Yeah,
no problem at all.
he's a sharp guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised with that. Well, man, I mean, what you just told me begs a question. Before we move on from here, I have to ask you, how did you get your ear blown off?
Well, it was a convoy through a pass in Afghanistan where we'd had some trouble before, and one of our vehicles had a problem, and so we're stopping the convoy, and we're having to hook up and tow it. And I was the lead vehicle in the convoy, and I was a gunner, so I'm sticking out of the turret. Back in the old days, you had a turret, and you stuck out of the turret, and you did your thing with a gun. I had a 50 cal or 240 up there. I forget what now, but there was a vehicle coming, and I stopped it. And hair kind of the back of my neck kind of stood up when I saw this vehicle. I don't know why. It was a white Toyota 4Runner, a brand new white Toyota 4Runner, which should have told me something right there. It turns out the Taliban at the time, they liked when they bought cars, they bought brand new cars for suicide vehicles. And they always got white ones because the white ones cost less than ones that were actually painted. I didn't know that.
Huh?
And the guy driving it was extremely traditional, long beard, very traditional looking Taliban.
Like the poster boy for Taliban.
Yeah, and we were told at the time to be on the lookout for guys who'd shaved their hair and gotten ready for a suicide mission and stuff. That's actually not what they were doing anymore. They changed. Now they just wore what they normally wore. But I'm looking for a guy who's all shaved. This guy's not, and he was very traditional. But a guy like that would not be driving alone in a brand new car like that. And I was inexperienced at the time, so I didn't. Yeah, I guess I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. So when we started going again, we had to pass that vehicle, and as soon as we got alongside him, our Humvee is just alongside the Toyota. It exploded. He blew up the bomb. He had multiple mortar rounds in the back that all exploded at once. There was nothing bigger in that vehicle left than the size of a football, and yet somehow I survived. And but I was injured, and when they drug me out of the vehicle, one sergeant said, "Hey, Morris, what hurts?" And I said, "Well, my ear kind of hurts." And he said, "Well, you don't have one anymore." I'm like, "Oh, well, okay." So,
Nice guy.
but I did have part of it still hanging, and they were able to reattach it when they got me to the field hospital.
Well, dude, we don't have the clearest cameras, but it looks pretty good from here. I mean, that looks
Yeah,
like a
you
normal
can't
ear.
really see. You can't really see. There's some scars and some. You just can't. I'm sorry, you can't see. But I have
That's a good
scars on
looking
my
ear.
face and around the eye and stuff. But it's it got me a few free drinks in Hawaii when I was on leave from that deployment, and so it worked out okay. Yeah, the ear itself though is just for looks. It's not. It's for appearance. It doesn't really work anymore. But
Gotcha. Oh,
these are pretty good ones.
I would have milked that big time. Anybody asked me, or I would just bring it up, be like that. Yeah, that's I lost that defending your freedom. So
Yeah,
maybe
anytime in a bar, it's a good story. But
maybe
yeah,
a Bud
I
Tolly boy my way.
really good care of me, and the only thing I didn't like was it took me out of action for a while. I had to leave my guys behind, and it took me a while to get back to them. But I was glad I did.
Man, that is crazy. That's scary. The level those guys take it to over there, the suicide bombers, and you see these videos, and I never know what's real on the internet. But a while ago, those videos were going around where it would just be like, it would look like a highway here, but like maybe going through the desert in California or Texas or something, and like an SUV would pull up, and they would just start randomly like shredding cars, like civilians with AK-47s. It was in the Middle East somewhere, but it was like, I never understood why they were doing that. They must have been a target of some kind, but it seemed like they were just like terrifying their own civilians, you know?
Well, they did not care about the Afghans. A lot of the people over there fighting were actually foreigners from other places. But even the ones that were from there did not care about the civilians. I survived. There were some civilians that did not survive that incident, and that bothers me probably more than anything else. the whole deployments that I did was, I'm there to help these people, and I cared about that. And those two guys, that they're just gone, and because the guy wanted to kill me, and I was not able to save them. So I wish if I could go back and do anything, it would be to save those two guys.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. James, can you take us way back to a young Deputy Morris? Just came back from being deployed. He's on day 2 of being a police officer, starting his career. Can you think of the first, actually not necessarily day 2, but when you were a younger officer, the first hot call you went on that really got your blood pumping?
Well, it was actually day 1 of my third field training officer, is a day shift guy. And we're just getting in the vehicle, and we're driving to the gas station he was actually an animal control guy. So animal calls, loose cows, whatever we went on, but we also did the criminal stuff too. And I'm introducing myself. Yeah, I'm married and blah, blah, blah. And he's telling me about what it's like being a police officer. He says, yeah, we look for POSs. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm not familiar with that acronym. I know a lot of the military acronyms. I don't know that one. What's a POS? He's like, that's a vehicle that's a piece of,
Right.
And he's like that one right there that is just driving in front of us, a minivan. He's like, that would be a POS. And he runs the tag, and it doesn't check back to that vehicle. So, of course, we're going to stop it. And, there's a pursuit. And what we didn't know is they were actually cooking meth inside the minivan, which they did a lot in our county at the time. And so they ran. And as they're running, they start slowing down, and the passenger door starts popping open. And I'm not driving because it's the first day, so he's still driving. So I start telling him, hey, if that guy runs, I'll get him because I'm a runner. He's like, okay, if he runs, you get him. Well, the vehicle stops, and the guy takes off running. I start chasing after him. And as I'm running, he starts reaching down. I know he's going for a gun. And so I tell him, hey, if you pull out that gun, I'm going to effing kill you.
Yeah.
And he pulls out the gun anyway. As I'm telling him that, I'm going for my gun too. But what I should have done was stop and pulled my gun, but I was still running after him for some reason. And so he gets the gun out first and starts blasting away at me. And so there was a row of houses right behind him. Yep. And if I missed, I was going to shoot one of those houses. So I thought I need to get as close to him as I can before I start shooting, because I cannot miss. And so I kept running at him, which turned out was a mistake. One of the rounds shot right by my ear, snapped right by my ear.
Your other ear?
Heck with the other ear.
Oh, jeez.
I'm not losing another ear. So I hit the dirt, and my military training kicked in. I tried to bring my rifle up to my shoulder. I didn't have a rifle. I had a pistol in my hand.
Oh, wow.
And so that took a second for me. What's going on here? I was all confused. And it was a pistol, not a rifle. And so now I have to shoot prone with the pistol, which I've never done before at the time. I have now, but at the time I have not done that. And so he's shooting at me still as I'm on the ground. I'm shooting at him and missing. And he takes off running, runs out of bullets. So I jumped up to my feet and chased him through the park and go over a fence and run around the house. And as I go around the house, I realized, I didn't know he was out of bullets at the time. He just stopped shooting, so I was chasing him. Well, I realized as I'm going around the house, that's probably where he's going to wait to get me as I come around the corner of the house. So I'm trying to buy the corner and be tactical, except I hear a lady from the front of the house screaming at him and him screaming at her. I'm like, well, now I can't wait. Now I can't be tactical. I've got to save this lady. So I run around the corner, and he'd actually collapsed in front of the lady. She was actually from the house that he was running towards and around. And she had heard, it was July 4th, by the way. So she'd heard all this popping and thought it was firecrackers going off. And she went to the back door to look and see what was happening. And that actually stopped the last round I was going to fire at him, because he was going over a fence and she was right on the other side of him. And I knew if I missed him, there's a good chance I was going to hit her. And by now we're probably like 30 meters apart from each other. So it's a good shot with a pistol. And I'm like, well, I can't shoot. I've got it. So I didn't shoot, and I just chased them. And that's when we went around the house. And she went to the front of the house, and that's where she started yelling at him, and he collapsed because he was exhausted. And I was able to take him into custody and get his gun, and to the jail he went.
Damn. So he was probably obviously stressed out too. He's in a gunfight. He's running for his life. And he willingly gave the gun up. Didn't try to shoot you or anything when you got close.
It turns out he threw. I never saw it, but when we went around the corner of the house, he threw the gun. And so when I took him into custody, I couldn't find the gun. he threw it in the front yard. And so then I'm all stressed out, like, where's the gun? Because, I was
Yeah.
thinking, oh my gosh, we're not going to find the gun. They're going to think I made up that he was shooting at me. But the gun was just sitting in the front yard. And it took me and two officers. We walked over the gun like 2 times before we actually found it. It was, of course, it was laying right there in plain view. But he had pitched it when he went around the house, and I just didn't see him throw it.
Damn, and that's like day 2, day 3, you said, of
Day one of that FTO with that FTO, and so I'd probably been a deputy on patrol for a couple weeks at that point, 4 or 7. It was after 7 weeks of field training with on patrol.
damn it, you must have felt like you were overseas again.
It really just, yeah, and I had just gotten back from deployment, so I was still in that mode. So it didn't stress me out at all. It was just kind of like another day. That's when really the training and everything kicked into effect, and I just did what I was trained to do and what I've done before. The only thing that threw me off was when I threw myself down on the ground, which I'd done 1,000 times in training and with the military. That when I tried to bring the rifle up to my shoulder, though I didn't have a rifle, I had a pistol in my hand. So
Isn't that crazy? Muscle
Yeah.
memory. Yeah, you've done it so many times before.
It does all that stuff, all the training we do. You don't rise to the occasion. You rise to your training when it really kicks in.
Yeah, and the military really concentrates obviously on rifle shooting. I'm a firearms instructor, so I've done a lot of people over the years, and I can remember specifically I had a Marine come through who'd been deployed a few times, and he was real good with the rifle, the M4. No problems there, but he was not great with the handgun, which shocked me. He just wasn't great with the handgun, like he was with the rifle.
It doesn't trade off. It doesn't really.
No, totally different.
When I joined the sheriff's office, I thought, yeah, this is gonna be easy. I've shot a million times. No, it was totally different. I was not good with the pistol at all for many years. I have since turned that around, but it actually took a lot of work and a lot of attention to detail to get that.
Yeah, pistol shooting's tough. I mean, when I was 18, I was able to get my permit for a pistol, and I had grown up shooting shotguns, I shot some skeet, I shot duck hunted, 22, stuff like that. Stuff you can go in the woods and shoot. And then when I turned 18, my dad gave me like one of his, he was a police officer. He gave me his Sig Sauer, and he said, there you go. It's in, locked box, and go to the range. And, cause I had shot it with him a few times at like logs in the woods and stuff. So I knew how to operate it. I'd never really tried to hit like a target. I went to the range and I was shocked at how bad I was. Shocked how bad, like with a rifle, pretty much when you put the sights on something, it's going to hit within a circle like that, even if you're like rushing. With the handgun, I shot like 10 rounds and I had like 3 on the paper. I couldn't even tell where the rounds were going. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with this gun? So I brought it back to him and he's like, no, that's one of the best handguns they make. It's a SIG. It's very accurate. He's like, you just suck at shooting a handgun. It's like, oh, okay.
For me, it's 90% is a grip. If I have a good grip, I'm gonna, and the bullet's gonna go where I send it. So it's all in the grip for me, and I think that's something that a lot of people overlook when they shoot handguns or when they teach people to shoot handguns. Is, man, if you got that grip, then the rest is easy.
Yeah, they say that. I mean, as humans, all the studies they've done for pointing and point shooting, we are very good at pointing at things. Like if you're pointing at something, somebody took a string and ran it off your finger to the item across the room, you're within a couple inches of that thing just innately. So I think with the fundamentals of marksmanship, if you, like you said, if you get your grip if you get a good proper grip, it aligns with your natural ability to point, and that way, like most officers in shootings on sides of the road, they don't use their sights. They're close, and they initially come out and they just start. It's just point shooting. You're focused on the target and you're shooting, and hopefully you have good fundamentals, and the bullets are going where you're pointing. But you're absolutely right. People who don't get taught how to get a good grip out of the holster, that all falls apart, and then all you have is the sights to have any prayer to hit something. But if you're getting a good grip on the gun, you're going to point at the target and hit it most times.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I had to, when I joined the SWAT team, obviously you were going to have a qualification you had to pass, and I was going to have to shoot very well. And so just the training for that, I learned that my grip was horrible, and that had been holding me back for years. So once I've got that down, the rest is easy for me anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when we I used to qualify guys that went from the revolvers to the semi-autos, and revolver had a different grip. They would bury the thumb, to hold the revolver. It was just different. And they would hold the semi-auto like that. So like getting them to change was like, because they'd be perfectly happy to squeak by with like an 86 for a qualification. And they didn't want to listen to me because I was like the kid who went to the school, and I was like, no, you got to hold it this way, and you can be getting hundreds. And they're like, don't care. But
that's the problem with a lot of us, especially as cops, is we think we know what we're doing when a lot of times we really don't, and we should need to just put our egos down and listen a little more. And I think that's helped me a little more. I've done it a little more lately in the last few years than before, when I walked around like, oh, I'm a cop and I'm a hero and I'm a this and I'm a that, and I'm a soldier.
right.
And meanwhile, I just was holding myself back by not listening to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of cops are like that. In the same vein, like a lot of cops will treat guys out of the academy as like, nothing. Forget everything you learned in the academy. This is how you be a cop. But really, at the flip side of that is they have the law. They know the laws, and they know the new laws like by heart. So I've found like we have a newer officer now, and he's sharp with the laws. Like he knows chapters and sections. I'm always like, I carry the books with me, and if I don't know something, I look it up. I've always done that. But he seems to know like the elements of the crimes, everything right off the top of his head. So, it's he's a resource for me. Just the other day, I was booking somebody, and I said chapter and section for, I forget what it was, and he was like, he gave it to me, and I put it in, and the computer backfilled it, and I was like, yeah, he was right. So I didn't have to use the book, So I can't, like you said, you don't want to be too proud not to, use somebody else's strengths, right?
Yeah, I learned things from from people that I'm training. I'm going through the field training with me. I don't let them know that they've taught me something. I don't want their egos inflated. But yeah, I actually do learn a lot sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with the young guys, because they know stuff about this computer stuff and a lot of stuff that I'm just I'm an old dinosaur. I don't understand.
Right. Control Alt Delete.
Yeah.
James, can you tell us about a strange or bizarre thing you dealt with on the job?
Well, there was one thing that happened, and it was standard call of vandalism. Some showed up. The lady said that these neighbor kids kept getting in her backyard, and they'd stabbed her above ground pool, and now it had a leak, and she was upset. And they had done other stuff, and there was a whole big litany of things that had happened. And as I'm talking to her, I'm like, okay, well, you might want to think about getting yourself a dog. And she's like, oh, I can't get a dog. And I thought, that's kind of weird. But okay, the way she said it just sounded weird. But whatever, So I go talk to the neighbors, and I'm like, listen, we can't prove your kids did it, but there were a bunch of kids, and it was kind of it was some. You could tell these were not the most upstanding people in the world. And so I'm telling them, hey, keep your kids away from her yard. And I've told her she needs to get a dog or something. If she does, I don't want your kids to get bit. And they laughed when I said that and said, oh, the judge won't let her get a dog. I'm like, what? That makes no sense. And then as I'm going back to my car to get a report number for the lady and finish what I have to do before I give her paperwork, I'm thinking, something about this sounds real familiar. And so I get on the computer and I Google her name, and it pops up. She had been arrested for making videos of her involved in sexual activities with dogs, and she had been selling them online.
Oh my gosh.
And not only that, but the one day when I was in Afghanistan where I had access to the internet, which is also the day that the crocodile hunter died that day. But I had read the story about her arrest in my county, and I remembered her name. Oh my gosh, this is the lady I remember reading about. So I'd actually read about this when it had happened, a long time before that. And so that was very strange. And that's not the only person that's been involved in activities like that. But yeah, she was a very strange person. So she would part of her probation was that she was not allowed to get a dog. And so they thought it was pretty funny when I told her she needed to get a dog to keep the kids out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is screwed up, man.
In fact, the field training officer, the animal control guy I had, who uh, I've been in a shootout with, he's actually the one that arrested her for the abuse of the dogs.
How? I mean, did they track her down from her internet accounts, or did someone like in real life dime her
I
out?
don't know if they got a tip. I don't know. It happened when I was in Afghanistan, and so I'm not sure exactly how it happened. I knew she was kind of an infamous person for us for a while, and she's since passed away. But she was a very interesting character and despicable. That's one of the people with the word despicable applies to. That would have been her, I guess.
Yeah, you got to have something real broken inside your brain to be doing. I can't. I mean, there's all kinds of kink out there that is I find very strange, but that is one that is like I don't even know how your brain gets damaged enough to be into that.
Yeah, I've needed to make extra money before. Luckily, I'm a cop, so I just guard a bank. But I don't know what thought process involved in someone thinking, "Hey, let me make a video with an animal." That's just it's very bizarre. But apparently, it happens because she's not the only person that's gotten in trouble for that in my jurisdiction. So it's very odd.
What'd she look like? Was she a good looking lady?
Oh no! Oh no! 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 No!
Okay.
This would be a person you'd not be surprised to make a video like that. It was.
Gotcha.
But there are more people involved in the whole production process. It's not just her. But yeah, so no matter what evilness and despicable activities are out there, there are people who will profit from it. And, she's case in point. She's proof of
Yeah.
that.
She probably had better production value to this podcast. She had an attention for detail. She wanted to put a good product out, so she hired help.
Well, this is the old days, so it was maybe VHS. I don't know. You're not going to find her material at Blockbuster though.
Yeah, there's no section for that in Blockbuster.
What?
Damn, man, that is bizarre. James, can you tell us about your most intense or terrifying call?
It was one that wasn't really that long ago. It was a day where, certain days you go out there and you just, do your job and whatever happens, happens, and you're not looking to get into anything. And certain days you hit the road and you're like, oh yeah, today I'm going to get in some stuff. Today I'm going to bring some evildoers to justice.
Right. I'm feeling
And
good.
it's one of those days, and I'm stopping every car you can in the worst parts of town I can get to, and I'm not finding anything. And so it's pretty late in the shift. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, today's not my day. So I'm going to go and maybe get some food, go find a nice park to sit in, do some paperwork, and I'm just going to chill out for a little bit. And as I'm driving, I see a car coming up behind me with missing one headlight. And I'm thinking, well, I could always stop one more car. No, I don't think I'm going to pull it over. But he's coming up, and so he's speeding, so he's catching up to me. I'm thinking, well, if he actually passes me, I'll go ahead and pull him over. And he passes me. So I light him up. Well, I'm actually in a loaner car. So I call out the traffic stop and I light him up and he keeps going. I'm like, oh, great. Of course, last stop of the night. This is what's going to happen. And so I go to turn on my siren to really let him know, hey, you need to stop. And then we'll see what happens from there. Well, this loaner car, the siren didn't actually work. I was not aware of this.
Oof.
And so he keeps going. I'm just driving behind him with my lights on. And he's going, and I'm hitting every button I possibly can to somehow get the siren to come on. Of course, nothing's happening, and it's an older car too, so I'm not familiar with all of the doodads down there to turn the siren
Right.
on. So finally, he turns into the neighborhood, and I turned after him, but I decided, well, if he's not going to stop, and I'm not going to pursue him because I don't have a siren anyway. And this is just it's a standard traffic for a traffic light. I'm not going to chase him through the neighborhood anyway. Oh, I just call it good. This is when he turned in the neighborhood, he started speeding up. So I'm getting on the radio. I'm about to say, hey, show me 10-8, when all of a sudden he pulls into a house real quick. And okay, well, we had taken like two weird turns and I hadn't been paying attention to the signs because I was already not going to chase him anymore. And I'm thinking, where am I at? So I get out of the car, and of course the sign is blocked by a tree, and he's trying to get out of the car. So I run up to him real quick and call out where I'm at, where I guess I'm at, which it turns out my guess turned out to be correct. But the next thing you know, we're fighting, And since I was trying to talk on the radio as we started fighting, he overpowers me, gets on top of me, and we're rolling around on the ground fighting for about 9 minutes straight, 9, 10 minutes straight.
Wow, that's a long time.
And yeah, and it's especially long because I lose my radio in the fights. And so dispatch is trying to send people to my location, but they're not sending them to the location I gave right before the fight started. They're sending them to the original location of the traffic stop,
That never
where
happened, right?
which is about a mile and a half from where we're at this point, and well, maybe a mile. And so everyone's going to the wrong location. I can hear everyone saying, "Hey, he's not here," and they're starting to grid search, and because this is all taking forever because we're fighting this whole time, and the whole time he's screaming for people from the house to come out and help him.
Oh,
And he's choking me, and we're fighting, and it's a pretty even battle, except I can't get free from him to get to my radio, and if anyone comes out of the house, I'm dead. I'm dead, which means I'm gonna have to shoot him, and I'm not wanting to do that, but it's gonna happen. And at
right.
some point, he mounts me, and now I can't even get up or anything, and he's choking me, and I'm thinking, wow, there is a bigger chance of me dying here than there is of me living. Like the odds have now shifted. A lot of times you
Yeah.
might be in danger, but it's a pretty good chance you can survive. Now I'm probably actually going to die right here in front of this guy's house. And oh yeah, the other thing was we had switched to every car having GPS in the cars, except I'm in an old loaner and didn't have GPS.
Oh,
So I can hear my supervisor saying, "Hey, use his GPS to find out where he's at." And of course, I didn't have GPS in the car, and I can see all the lights and sirens of people driving around trying to find me. But the weird street we're in, it looped down and took a turn, and so no one driving around can actually see where my lights are at and where we're at. The headlights.
dude.
Everyone's passing us. We can hear all the lights and sirens, and it's going madness for like 9 minutes straight. And so finally, he's trying to get up and run away, and I'm trying to hold him there. But finally, he breaks free, and I get to the radio, and I call out where I'm at, and he runs inside the house, and this one of the people from the house is in the doorway. I'm trying to get past them, and they're keeping me back. I'm trying to fight through them, but at this point, I'm totally exhausted. I have
Oh,
no
I
strength
bet.
left at all. And a city guy drives up, and he gets out of his car, and this guy's like 6'4", like 260 pounds of nothing but muscle,
Perfect.
and he just barrels through the guy in the doorway. And then we found the guy, and we still had to fight him. Him, the officer, and I had to fight him still. And before we finally got him in custody and drug him out of there. And I was just done. I've been a professional boxer. I was an amateur boxing champion. I had fought for years against some of the nationally ranked best fighters in the country. And I've never been as exhausted as I was after that fight. It was rough. And the next day I get home, and the next day the wife's looking at me. She's like, "Hey, what's wrong with your eyes?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? My eyes feel fine." And I actually had gotten petechiae from being choked so much by the guy.
Wow.
Like I was a domestic violence victim. They'd been choked by the husband.
Yeah.
I actually got that because he choked me so much and so hard.
Wow, that is intense, James. Damn. What was his big reason for doing all
He had
this?
6 warrants for his arrest, and they were city warrants. I wouldn't have arrested him on that. I would have written him a ticket because he didn't have a driver's license. I would have written him a ticket, told him to get his headlight fixed, and I would have said, "Hey, take care of the city warrants." Wouldn't have arrested him on that. And actually told him that before he went down back to the jail. The jail accepted him. We're in the pre-booking process. I'm like, dude, if you had just stopped, I would have written you a ticket, and maybe I'd have written you a warning, and that would have been that, and you'd have been on your way. And he just decided to turn it into a homicide. He'd rather kill me than go to jail for his like 6 traffic warrants.
What did he have to say to you when you told him that?
He just bowed his head and realized he messed up. But his mess up would end up with me dead. It almost ended up with me dead or him dead. Because at one point when he's on top of me choking me, I'm thinking, because I could still get to my gun if I had to. But if I did, I was absolutely going to have to shoot him because the gun would be involved in the fight. And then he would have taken the gun away from me because he was bigger and stronger than I was. And so if I went for the gun, I immediately was going to have to shoot him. And so during the thought process of, oh, I'm probably going to die here tonight, I was thinking I should do that. But I decided to hold off on that because no one was coming out of the house yet. And he didn't know I could reach to my gun. So I decided I'm going to keep fighting him and see what happens before before I go for that. But it was right to the razor's edge of what me having to pull out a gun and shoot him, which, he was unarmed. And with the way things are nowadays, me having to shoot an unarmed suspect, it would have just went badly for me. So
Yeah, you actually have to be in like almost that exact situation. And when you're in it, you're probably trying to gauge, is this that situation? Can I shoot this guy?
Thought process was going through my head at the time is, because he was a different ethnicity than me. And what's going to happen if I have to shoot this guy? And is it better for him to just kill me? Is it better for my family for me to just die here than for me to kill him? And I was not going to die, but that thought process did go through my head of what's going to happen if this happens.
Yeah, isn't that a shame? You got to think like that. Damn, man. What is a city warrant versus any other warrant?
Well, because I'm a deputy, we do everything through the state, and so there's state charges. And local cities and municipalities, they have their own different law enforcement, and they have their own tickets they can do. And so, as a deputy, you really care about the state charges, the state tickets and stuff, versus a municipal ticket, because you might be on Hokum Pokum somewhere, and someone might have a speeding ticket from Hokum Pokum from 8 years ago, and and I'm just making up that name of that town.
Right.
But if you're in Hokum Pokum and you pull over a guy who's got a warrant from Hokum Pokum that's 6 years old, you're not going to take yourself out of service for 2 hours just so you can arrest him on this city warrant.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because in where I work, Massachusetts, the way it's written, it says shall arrest for any warrant that's, a non-extraditable warrant. Like if there's nothing that can be done with the guy, then we don't have to. But we pretty much have to. But we also don't do like city warrants or any. They just kind of, it will tell you what the warrant's for, but it's all through the county.
Yeah, you have to weigh the benefit of you taking yourself out of service for 2 hours. Then there could be a shooting, or there could be something where you're stuck in booking with a guy who's got two traffic warrants versus you taking him into custody. So it's something you have to weigh, and if you're wrong, then it's going to be on you. And if you're you just hope to do the right thing.
Right, I understand. So like a city warrant would never be for murder or something.
No, it'd just be municipal stuff only.
Oh, okay.
If you pull over a city warrant, it's for like shoplifting at Walmart. Yeah, that person's going to go to jail. But if it's a city warrant for like no seatbelt, or that actually probably be a state charge. But for for a light being out, defective equipment, or for speeding or something, you're probably going to think, okay, hey, take care of your warrant, and or you might write them another ticket, and now they've got a state charge too.
Gotcha.
But, probably not going to do anything.
Yeah, I guess up here they mostly do. They just do and Mass is pretty liberal state anyways, but they go the route of like suspending or revoking your registration. They suspend your license. For like unpaid traffic stuff or tickets. They don't. I don't know if I've seen a warrant for unpaid traffic fines up here. So it sounds like it's just kind of a little bit of a different system than we have.
Yeah, it sounds like a little bit different.
They don't like to put people in jail up here. Everybody's good at the heart. You just got to give them another chance.
We love people in jail down here. Now it's changing a little bit, unfortunately. Some of that weird stuff on the left coast and some of those Yankee states like Massachusetts is bleeding over in the heartland. But we still like putting bad guys in jail.
That's good.
But you always have to weigh the benefit. Does this help the people of the state, or is this going to hurt people? You try to do the right thing.
Right. Yeah, Massachusetts is kind of a funny animal. It's in a lot of ways it's like California Junior, but also isn't, because Massachusetts as a whole does support police. Like they want police in Massachusetts. Like these people want law and order. But it's more on the court side where you don't see a lot of defunding going on up here at all. It's like more police. Our budgets have gotten bigger, so they want the law and order. But it's almost like when it's almost like standing in front of mom instead of dad. Like when you get to the judge, it's mom, and she's like, "Well, I really feel bad about giving you this kind of punish." You know what I mean? If it was more of a dad like you guys have, it's more like, "Hey, this is for your own good. This is the penalty. You knew what it was, and here it comes." It's more like the mom judge where it's like, "Well, we're going to give you another chance." And the person, does something horrible. And they're like, "Well," that's my own interpretation.
Well, I think we have that going on here too. The dads are the cops, and the judges are definitely the moms. When you arrest a guy for a stolen vehicle, being in a stolen vehicle in a pursuit, and it's like the third arrest for that he's gotten that year. You're thinking, why is this guy not in custody right now? But sometimes the right thing happens, but a lot of times it slips through the cracks, and there's just so many people, and the court system is just so inundated with cases that it's easy for sometimes the wrong guys to get out.
Yeah, it's really weird too. Whenever someone charges the bench, those people always get the maximum sentence. So the judges don't like to be threatened at all. But anything that happens to us is just fine.
Yeah, for a long time there were people trespassing under our courthouse, and we were running them out, and we were arresting people for trespassing, and then the judge is like, "No, you need to stop doing that." And then one came out, and a homeless person was urinating on his car, and guess what we were told then? Well, it was an open hunting season.
Life sentence.
Yeah. There was no one in that courthouse for a long, long time when it was closed.
Yeah. Ain't it the truth, brother? James, can you tell us a positive or heartwarming encounter from your job?
Well, it was a thing that happened. I'll have to set it up first. And it was on day shift at the time, and I had a partner who was real big into hunting drugs and meth labs back when a lot of the meth used to be manufactured in the state back in the old days. Now it's mostly manufactured somewhere else and brought here because we've made it real hard to get Sudafed here in the state. We've got a registry, and you can only buy so much. So you don't have the ingredients you really need to make the meth. So you won't find a lot of meth labs, homegrown meth labs anymore. But at the time, there was this house, and we knew they were cooking meth there. And so we showed up, and it was just a knock and talk. We're just going to knock on some doors and see if we can get lucky, kind of thing. And if they tell us to pound rocks, we just have to pound rocks. Well, as we get there, these two people run into a shed that's out in the front yard. And we walk up, and we're like, we can smell something fishy. If something smells kind of chemically here, but I can't say for sure it's a meth lab. But I'm pretty sure it is, but can't really prove it. And so we're pounding on the door, and they're not answering the door, and we're pounding on the door, and there's no answer. And so I make a big production out of yelling to some other deputies that shown up, who hadn't actually shown up. Hey guys, hold this shed. I'm going to go get my ram out of the back of my car. I'm going to come back. I'm going to smash this door down. Anybody in this shed's going to jail. All right, you guys ready? All right, you guys form a circle here, and I'll be right back. And I'm yelling all this stuff, and the door pops open because they thought we were going to batter the door down. And sure enough, there was a meth lab in the shed, and so both of them went to jail for endeavoring manufacture, which is a very serious charge in my state. And the girl actually ended up going to prison because of it. And I learned that years later because I was working part time at a local fast food chain. And I'm just sitting there, and a young couple walks in, a man and a woman. And
You're working like a detail, like a overtime.
It's a part-time job. It's just like when you're off duty in my state, you can just work at a place that pays you directly just to provide security.
So you're not flipping burgers, is what I'm saying.
No.
Okay.
I'm still in uniform. Usually playing games on my phone or studying Spanish or something.
Right.
Whatever. And so I'm sitting there, and the couple comes in, and the girl keeps looking at me, and I don't recognize her at all. And she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and finally she walks over to me and says, "Do you recognize me?" And I'm like, "No, I'm sorry, I don't." And she says, "You were outside the shed, and you told us you were going to knock the door down." Like, "Oh yeah, I remember that." And she's like, "Thank you so much for arresting me. They sent me to prison, and I got cleaned up, and it changed my whole life. That was the best day of my life." And now she had a husband, and she had the cute kid with her too that was well behaved, and they looked like they were just happy young couple. And she got that because she got to go to jail that day and get a chance to have her life turned around.
Hallelujah! That's fantastic.
Yeah, so it made me very happy because they looked happy, so I was happy.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. It's wins like that are few and far between, but you need them sometimes, right?
Yeah, no, it actually, sometimes it happens. I had a lady once, we were arresting her. She had high-centered her vehicle on train tracks. And so we're arresting, she was drunk, super drunk. And so we did standardized field sobriety tests on her, and she, of course, just bombed them. And we're trying to take her into custody, and she kicks my partner right between the legs.
Oh.
And so he responds with a blow that puts her on the ground. And all the train workers like, "Oh, don't mess with the county." And then we put her in handcuffs, and she went to jail. Well, 2 or 3 years later, I got a letter from her, and she said, "Hey, you probably don't remember me, but this." And she said, "That wasn't like me. I'm just very sorry, and thank you so much for taking me to jail." And just stuff like that happens now and then, and makes you glad that you do your job and you try to be fair to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things like we were saying with the mom and dad scenario that I cooked up there. It's like, there's the laws are there to protect people, and not just the people, but it's also to protect a lot of times the people who are breaking them, because they need correction. They need to get on the rails. They're off the rails. You know what I mean? So it's good to hear those stories, and it actually the person's got enough of a brain in their head that they get the correction, and it scares them, and they straighten out.
Now the cop in me thinks, well, maybe the judge told her to write that letter, but I choose to believe that she just wanted to write the letter. And I know for sure that the lady at the fast food place did not have to say thank you. So stuff like that happens, and some lives turn around, and when people are ready to turn their life around, they're ready. And so everyone's always so much happier, it seems like, when they're not committing crimes, because in the end, it never pays off for anyone.
Yeah, you are always looking over your shoulder. You always got somebody after you. If it's not the police, it's somebody you double crossed or somebody you owe money to. It's like that's worked for me a few times. I've straight up on cases that I had where I couldn't find the person, but it was going to be the probable cause was going to get stale, and now I'm going to have to submit for a warrant, the whole thing, and I hate doing all that stuff. So I've actually twice now called someone on the phone because I had their number from a friend or family member. And I just tell them, like what you were just saying, I'm like, hey man, you got to go to jail. And if you just man up, do it right now. Just come down to the police department, meet me, and let's get it done, because I'm putting the warrant in. And then everywhere you go, it might be months from now, you'll be in the middle of your day and you're going to get dragged to jail. I said, just get it done now. You got to take care of it. And it worked both times. They came in, they walked in the front door.
3 times I've walked up to people that were suspects in burglaries. I had nothing on them at all. And I read the Miranda because I have to do this before I talk to you. It's just policy. I'm sorry. Let me just get this out of the way real quick. And I said, listen, hey, we've got fingerprints. We got everything over there. And we know it's going to come back to you. And man, they don't want to do a report though. So if you just give us the stuff back, and then there won't be a report whatsoever, and then you're going to be free to go. And they give me the stuff back. And of course, I then arrested them for burglary.
Right.
And one was, I actually felt bad about one. He's like, man, you're like the coolest cop I've ever met in my life. And as he's bringing the stuff back, and stuff that the lady even know was stolen yet. She had stolen so much stuff from her house. And then when I put him in handcuffs, he's like, wait, you said you weren't going to take me to jail. I said, yeah, but it's a felony. I kind of have to.
It's called a ruse.
Yeah, the ruse. Yes. Man, some of my friends get mad when I tell that story, but I'm like, hey, my job is to protect the victims who are burglarized. My job is to help them. And, it might help the burglar too. If he goes to jail, maybe he won't burglarize anyone else in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great, man. So James, last question for you. It's a popular one because they're actually just got a message last night through Instagram from an officer who just got out of Graduate Police Academy. He sent me a picture of himself in uniform at graduation. He said one of the big factors for him was listening to the men and women of law enforcement like yourself that come on this podcast, and just listening to multiple interviews, getting to know what it's like. It was a big part of what made him become a police officer, which is like the best message I can get. I think because we need cops, we need people to be interested in wanting to do this career, and that's happened a few times now. So the question is, advice to new police officers or people who are thinking about getting into the career. What would you tell them?
Well, one is don't give up. The last grade I actually completed was the 5th grade. I was not a school guy. I would skip school for months at a time. They took my mom to court, and I had to tell the judge, hey, I'm just not going to go to school. And he said, you're going to grow up to be a criminal.
Really? Wow.
When I was 17. And I've since gone and got to get a bachelor's degree, but I was just not a school guy. I never have been. Some people aren't. But so then when I was trying to join law enforcement after, I thought I was going to be a boxer my whole life, but that didn't work out so well for me. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I always thought about being a cop. So I started applying all these places, and I kept getting turned down. And so if I had quit then I never would have got to have this amazing career, this amazing life that's been given to me, and all these great things that have happened, and all these experiences. And so the number one thing I would tell people is don't quit. Whatever you do, don't quit. Just if someone turns you down, just get better, train, work out, do whatever you have to do, and get better. And then just apply maybe somewhere else. Maybe that wasn't meant to be where you're supposed to be. Apply somewhere else, or maybe apply at the same place again. Just don't quit. Don't take no for an answer. And if you don't quit, good things happen. You're never beaten until you say you're beaten. You never don't accept defeat. If you don't accept defeat, you can't be beaten. And that's the number one thing I would say. And then when you become a cop, that's only the start of the journey. You've got to keep training. You've got to keep getting better. And I don't care how old you are, how long you've been a cop, there's more stuff to learn. There's more stuff to do. You can become a better shot. You can move stronger, faster, quicker, whatever. Just get better, because if I had not done these things in my life, I would be dead today. And that's not a good thing. So don't quit and always train. That's what I would tell people.
Words of wisdom. I love it. Yeah, especially all that stuff was great, especially with the applying thing. It's there's for most people, there is some rejection with applying for police departments. It used to be a lot worse when it was like people were like applying in droves. But there's still a lot of agencies have a very high standard, and they might not, a lot of places won't even tell you what in your background or why they rejected you or some. I mean, at that point, they can just do it because it might be as simple as they feel like you're too young or you haven't had enough jobs or whatever it could be. They might feel like you're immature, but I know that's a common thing I hear, especially when I was doing backgrounds in California. But just keep going, because we had people come through the process three times, and I worked with guys who had gone through the process three times, and it takes 2-3 years to do something like that. And they're fantastic cops. They're great cops, and they really wanted it, but they got it. They got the prize. They stuck with it. So words of wisdom, brother. I really appreciate it. And it was an honor to have you on, man. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No, I appreciate you inviting me on this. I had a lot of fun, and I really enjoy listening to your podcast too. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, brother. Hey, if you got some friends that want to come on, just let me know, man. Love to have them.
Absolutely, I'll let you know. Thank you.
All right, brother. I'm going to do the outro. Can you hang on just for like 3 minutes?
Absolutely.
All right, man. The great James Morris, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic stories. Incredible, especially the whole losing your ear thing. That's nuts. I don't know. I'm a little bit soft. I think if I went through maybe half of what James went through, I would probably be looking for some kind of medical retirement. Live the easy life. All right, guys, it's the time in the show when we thank the Patreon sergeants. That's the second level at Patreon you can join, and you will get a shout out on the show. And either sergeant or patrolman level, I will send you a really snazzy 3x3 vinyl sticker for the show, which I know you will proudly display somewhere, maybe right on your windshield or water bottle or wherever you want. But the Patreon sergeants who I'm talking about is the great Jason Labrie, Bentley Barnay. Damn, you gotta tell me, buddy. Bentley Barnay, I think. Zachary Pleat, Sheriff Ron, Ossifer Andy, you got me, buddy. Adam McMahon, Clark Luckhoff, the great Nancy Hammond, Zach Haney, Brad Thompson, the great Kyle Roberts, Jace Crow, everybody, Christian, thank you, sir, the great Elliot Sykes, the one and only Dave Ellman, love you, buddy. Richard Tolles, keep on trucking, man, stay safe out there. Doug and Kelly Newman, love you guys, see you at church. Dan Carlson from Burley Boards, everybody. The great Scott Young, Wayne M. Miller, retired ATF and author. The great Thomas Connell, Dennis Carrasquillo, everybody. George Tessier, see you at church, brother. Iceman from Motocrop Chronicles, check out his podcast. Greg Gadboy, the great Ben Peters, Scott Minkler, Tammy Walsh, holding it down at Dispatch, looping the sounds around again. Sean Clifford, Sasha McNabb, the great Mike Wynn, Jason Lau, Lauren Stimson, everybody. Jake Pinedo, love you, buddy. John Shoemaker, the great James Rose, Seth Wright, the great Tony Fahey, William James Long. That's Deputy William James Long to you. Thank you very much. The great and powerful Andy Biggs, Chris June, the great Adam Mihal, Gary Steiner, love you, buddy, and the handsome Lane Campbell. Whew, guys, the list is getting long, and I really like that. So thank you for the support and keeping the lights on over here. Truly, if I could truly be supported through listeners with no ads, that's the way I would go. So if you really love the show and you've listened to a bunch of it and you think, let me give Steve some love, you can do that on Patreon. Link is in the show notes. All right, guys, I will see you next week.